value for the deductibles. And in many cases, it goes to 10 or 15, which makes it totally unaffordable for some to be able to handle the either the mortgage and the homeowners insurance, or to be able to feel comfortable that they can budget properly for the coming years.
Yeah.
And go
Yeah,
ahead,
Greg,
please.
I wanted to get in there too because you were kind of alluding to this fact that, what has kind of remained right now a South Florida problem is becoming an all Florida problem. But, you kind of alluded to this as well. I mean, Florida is no stranger to hurricanes. It sees hurricanes each and every year, and it has for so many years, time immemorial, you could argue. But why specifically now is this such a problem?
Well, I think if you look at the world in general, you're looking at a very, there's a lot of financial crises wherever you look. And this is just one of those. And when you look at what is reinsurance, well, in Florida, we have a lot of small companies who depend on very large companies for their insurance. So just the same as I'm going to go out and buy a homeowner's policy for my insurance, these homeowners companies will go out and they're purchasing their reinsurance. So what we have is a situation that in the case of one of our carriers locally, they had a $30 million deductible last year. This year they have a $100 million deductible before they submit any claims to the reinsurance companies. And on top of that, in this case, their reinsurance costs them over $600 million. So when you look at those numbers, how many policies would you have to sell as a company to be able to, let's say the average was $3,000 to $5,000 to be profitable? I mean, it's just really not there for most of these companies. And while the state does its best, and I have to say, Florida has done a fantastic job of dealing with the hurricanes as they hit and as the need arises for the communities. They really get out there. They've got the electricians. They've got all of the people needed in the right places, and they do a fantastic job. The problem is what happens after that occurs, and it's the cleanup, it's the rebuilding. And when you look at just this year alone, well, we're paying 4 times the national average. We also talk about what are the building costs? What are the costs of reconstruction? So for instance, it used to be that our upscale homes that we would have would be somewhere in the range of $250 a square foot. Now those are in excess of $600 to $700 a square foot to replace, and even the $200,000 to $300,000, $400,000, 2,000 square foot homes are in that $300,000 to $400,000 range, or $300 to $400 range per square foot to rebuild. So all along the path, it continues to diminish our capability to fight.
So,
And when you look at the influx, what do we have? 25 million to 30 million people in Florida. The infrastructure is being built properly. Everything is being built up to code. But like the area of Big Bend, you'll notice that a lot of that's aging, and those are older homes. And so when these companies come in to insure them, well, do they really want to insure older homes of wooden structures, things like that? And if they do, well, it's going to be a total loss when these storms finally hit those areas.
yeah.
And so it is a real dilemma. So for instance, we always considered South Florida the Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties. And then above that, things got a lot less expensive. Well, as of this last year, they continued up the coast where the hurricanes came across more to the middle of the state.
Right.
And that really opened the door for those premiums to go up and to go up and to go up. So we're really seeing now that it's what used to be isolated to a tri-county area is now statewide, as you mentioned. And the problem is that not all of the state is brought up to code. So these older areas are going to incur larger losses.
Yeah, I want to talk though about, I guess, the insurance market writ large in the state of Florida because, several insurance companies, major ones, they've pulled out. They said, they're no longer going to write policies there in the state, but some are still there. I mean, we're not on the trajectory where it's, going to come a point in time where you just can't insure anything like your home there in Florida because of the extreme weather. Do you think we're on that path right now? Are we far away from that at the moment?
Oh, yeah, we're clearly on that path. And the reason I would say that is this. We have a company called Citizens, and it's a non-governmental company, but and really not they're designed for profit, but it's the place of last resort. And even in those cases, people can't even qualify to get in if their structures have not been updated on the roofs, on the electrical, on the plumbing.
So I was just don't miss.
Baby, go.
Ticker was counting, and it was 1 minute and 43 seconds, it looked like to me.
So the information I received was 143 on the video as printed, but I don't have confirmation of that at this time.
Okay.
Can we
Anyone
get
else?
clarification on the exact amount of homes that he may or may not have burglarized? We're hearing conflicting numbers from different people.
At this time, we are only able to confirm that he was behind one home, that he possibly entered into another. We don't have 100% confirmation as to that. And there have been allegations of other burglaries that have not panned out. So we're still investigating other leads, but no one else has been able to positively identify.
Can you maybe describe what the officers, law enforcement, is doing when they go to someone's home so they can know what to expect? People at home can know what to expect. Is there going to be 10 people, 5 people, long guns, not long guns? Like, what can they expect when that shows up at their house?
I'll let the deputy marshal speak.
Sure.
So essentially, it's going to be a uniform presence, someone in uniform. We go to a residence, knock on the door, potentially ask to enter their residence and clear their home, if they're given permission to do so. So when we do come to your residence, we'll be attired in uniform.
District Attorney Ryan, yesterday you talked about how Mr. Cavalcante has a pending legal matter before the county, that he's appealed his sentence or his conviction, or I'm not exactly sure what that was, but can you clarify the details of that and what that means as far as when he's caught, where he will be kept in custody?
So those are two different questions. I'll answer the first one that you posed, which is with respect to the filing of a post-sentence motion. It was filed by his defense attorney yesterday, requesting either a new trial, suggesting there was not enough evidence to convict him of first-degree murder, or reconsideration of the sentence that was imposed, which was life without parole, which is a mandatory sentence in Pennsylvania for first-degree murder, plus 2.5 to 5 years consecutive for possessing an instrument of crime, which was the knife he used to murder Deborah Brandow. Repeat the second question for me.
The second question was, when he's caught, does that mean that he has to be returned to Chester County Prison?
So we're in discussions right now as to where we believe he's going to be sent next.
Okay, but not necessarily. So there's no legal requirement that he remain in Chester County
No,
Prison?
not necessarily. Sure.
Are you still not able to confirm exactly how he was able to escape from the prison?
We're not at this time. Our focus is on the capture of this convicted murderer. We will be certainly looking into all of that information, and we will share that when we can. But this time, our main focus is just getting him into custody. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
want to get to one of our main breaking stories of the day today. You're taking a look at the photo of a man who police say escaped from prison yesterday and is still on the run. Now a very big manhunt is underway. His name is Danilo Cavalante. He's 34 years old. He was able to get past guards at Chester County Prison just before 9 a.m. yesterday morning. He's being described as 5 feet tall, 120 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair, and he was last seen wearing a white t-shirt and gray shorts. Now, this is a very dangerous individual. He was recently convicted of first-degree murder and the stabbing death of his former girlfriend. Authorities say even more gruesome in this crime is that he did this in front of her 2 young children back in April of 2021. Now, he was sentenced to life in prison for his former girlfriend's murder last week, and authorities say he's also wanted for a 2017 murder in Brazil. So a very dangerous individual who's on the run right now. This has impacted people who live in the area, as well as students who go to West Chester University, also very close by. Joining us right now, though, is Andrew Smith, who is a student there himself. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us here. Obviously, we can see that you're in your dorm right now, a very scary situation for you. Tell us a little bit about how school officials have handled this and how you found out the news.
So we found out not till later in the afternoon. We found out about like 2 o'clock, which was a little concerning when you find out that he escaped to eat, because we're only about 6.5 miles from the campus. So that was a little scary to think about. And then they didn't really cancel classes or anything. They've kind of restricted residence housing. You can't have guests or anything. So, and then you definitely noticed like an increased presence in the police. They're definitely around more active.
Sure. So what was your first reaction when you heard that there was an escaped prisoner on the run, not to mention that this is a convicted murderer?
It's kind of a surreal moment. You don't really believe it at first, and especially looking into it, because he doesn't like seem like someone who comes off as much as a threat, especially when you're given like that he's only 5 foot, 120. You can see like the students are definitely kind of mixed about it. Some are taking it as a joke, like they're not really too scared of him. But then when you look at his like history and the crime he committed, it's definitely a scary feeling.
So give us a sense of where your university is, how close it is to the prison, and have you ever felt unsafe being at school there?
We're about 6 miles from it, and so I wouldn't be too concerned, except for the fact there's been apparently a couple sightings of him within the actual county. So that's a little scary. And then this is, I would say, the first time I've ever felt not necessarily unsafe, but definitely on edge, because you know that the police and the college are working together to try to keep everyone safe. But it's also just the thought of you don't know where he is, where he's at. So there's always that concern.
Sure. And so since then, classes have been canceled, at least for today, right? Tell us a little bit more about how the school has taken this situation into their own hands.
So yesterday, classes were going as normal. I had a night class, and you definitely noticed, like, I was going to class, and there's cops kind of speeding around. You could hear the sirens. And then today, I wasn't in class, but you get the text saying that classes are canceled. And I had some friends that were in class, and they were saying it's kind of a scary moment because everyone's getting, like, kicked out of the buildings, getting sent home. So it's, like, a little scary because you don't know exactly what's going on. It's not something that's ever really happened before.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about just the energy on campus. If you went to class yesterday evening, how were students reacting to this news? Could you notice that people were maybe more scared than usual or talking about this more?
Definitely a lot of talk about it. Like I was saying earlier, there's definitely mixed reactions. People are taking it not necessarily as a joke, but kind of trying to lighten the mood about it. But people definitely are more scared, especially when you get the text saying, like, everyone's got to go back to their dorms, keep the doors locked. You could tell everyone was a little put off by it, definitely a little scared.
Sure, and I'm sure that, you know, family and friends, those close to you and other students there are definitely concerned, especially if they're from, you know, far away.
Yeah, everyone I know has been texting. They're trying to make sure that, like, you're taking the right precautions. Obviously locking your door if you go out, have either someone with you or like mace or something to kind of just protect yourself on the off chance you do see them.
Sure, and of course the goal here is that they're going to find this individual as soon as possible, but in the case that they don't, say this leads into Monday on Labor Day, how do you think the school is going to handle that? Do you foresee classes also getting canceled potentially into next week?
I would hope so. I mean, with the capabilities of Zoom and the ease of going online, I feel like the precaution, we should just take it, because I'd rather be at home locked behind a door than having to go to campus where you could easily blend in with the huge crowds.
Yeah, understandably so. And also, I guess, Andrew, I want to ask you about this too. It's the weekend, it's a holiday weekend, you know, people have plans. So how do you plan to go about your weekend, if at all, differently when it comes to, you know, running errands, seeing friends, getting groceries, whatever it may be?
I myself am not really doing too much this weekend. If I do run out, we're not going to do anything for too long, kind of try to come back as soon as you can. I've noticed, like, you can see people on campus that it feels like they're not really taking it as serious. There's still like large crowds going around and like still doing the normal activities. So it'll be interesting to see how the school kind of handles that, if they try to crack down on that at all.
Well, and when you and I talked earlier too, Andrew, I think you mentioned about your key cards, that those are being used a lot more in certain areas. You're also not allowed to bring any guests inside, right?
Yeah, so if you're trying to get into any normal building, usually you can just walk in. Now they're making it required. You have to have your RAM ID with you. You have to show that when you go in. And then all the dorms, all the buildings, they're restricting it to one entryway. So you have to go through that one entryway. They're like making sure that everyone has their IDs. And then they're not allowing anyone to have guests. I mean, you can have guests. You just got to sign them in, show an ID. And they're just not letting that happen, understandably.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is definitely something to be taken very seriously here, and hopefully they will be able to locate this individual as soon as possible. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us here. Stay safe as you continue to follow this news as well. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, let's take let's refocus our attention here again on Florida, and specifically Horseshoe Beach, one of the areas that's been impacted arguably among the most out of some of these cities that have been hit so far by that Category 3 storm that swept through Florida. And joining us live right now here is Brooke Hires, who's a council member with Horseshoe Beach. Brooke, thanks so much for joining us here. We can see obviously that you are outside. You've been out surveying this damage throughout the week. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been seeing.
What I've seen is catastrophic damage. I've seen homes that have been here for many, many years. destroyed, disintegrated. No recollection or trace of where they went. There's debris everywhere. It's just so hard to explain. Everything on the ground, roofs, appliances, pylons, contents of homes. If your house was on stilts here, it was either, if it wasn't taken away, if you had a second level on the bottom, everything was washed out to the Gulf. Everything is gone, or in our town, stacked up in debris piles that still need to be cleaned up.
Brooke, that's just devastating. I'm not sure how much you've been able to see other areas, but if you could shed some light to our viewers here of how Horseshoe Beach compares to some of the other nearby towns.
What we're hearing is a little south of us, Cedar Key. They received some damage. What I'm hearing from friends is that they're getting it cleaned up pretty quick over there. I'm pretty sure Steinhatchee was hit pretty hard. It's near the Ave. Will it come on at Keaton Beach? I have heard from people that have been in the other couple of coastal towns that Horseshoe Beach is probably the worst they've seen.
Yeah, it's really devastating, Brooke, and I'm going to put up some video here for viewers to get a better look. We had our Skyfox drone flying over some of the damage throughout the area, and it's really just devastating to see. Of course, we've been following just the very latest here with all of the people who have been impacted through this. Now, tell us a little bit more about your experience in Horseshoe Beach. Have you lived there for a long time, or have you ever seen destruction like this?
Never seen destruction like this in Horseshoe Beach. Well, we were told that the last hurricane that was this large was in 1935. We experienced Hermine in 16, and of course the storm of the century in 93. Those were the two worst storms we had seen here other than Idalia.
For residents who have lost their homes, Brooke, what comes next for them?
Well, we have primary residence people here that are going to have to apply for FEMA. And secondary residences. I'm not that familiar with FEMA right now, but they can apply at FEMA.gov. There's people on the ground assessing from FEMA right now, here to help people that may not have internet or access to technology.
And Brooke, I know that you've been out and about. If you could hear for us, would you mind turning your camera around and kind of giving us another angle here of some of this destruction that you've been seeing?
Sure. I want to show y'all this house, or the house that was here. Do you see those pilings right there? That's the Gulf of Mexico you're looking at. There was a home standing on these pilings.
Wow.
My friend Scotty's family lives there. I watched him take the boards off the dock the day before the storm to save his dock, and his family lost their whole entire home.
So what have these days looked like for you, Brooke, as you've been out and about talking with residents? This is a small town, too. I mean, how many residents are there in Horseshoe Beach?
We have about 480 water accounts here. Of those, I'd say 120 or so are first-time residents, full-time residents.
And what about the community itself? How do they respond in a time of crisis like this and come together?
We're a small town. We're a tight-knit town. We're the last frontier. We're old Florida. People here love each other, and they've showed up to help. People are showing up.
Yeah, Brooke, I see you getting emotional, understandably so, and you can tell how much you care, how much so many other people care, especially during this very difficult period. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us just about the destruction, about the community, or about what comes next from here?
I'd like to introduce you to the people that own the property that I'm showing you behind us. You can ask them about, what they're feeling, their emotions.
Yeah, no,
This is Mr. Sid Thomas. This was his place behind us. Mr. Sid, y'all want to talk? And Miss Shelley, if y'all want to let them know.
Hi, Sid and Shelley. Thanks for joining us here. So sorry to hear about your home.
Yeah, we've owned this place
68 years, since 1956. So it's part of the family. Raised our kids here, summer vacations.
I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how difficult that is to be going through this. And I know so many great memories there. And I know this is very difficult. So again, thank you for joining us here to tell us a little bit more about this place that you love so much. If you don't mind, if we go back to when you were hearing about these warnings, hearing about Idalia and the damage that it could possibly cause during this, what was your first reaction? Did you evacuate, or how did you go about handling those warnings?
Well, this is a second home, and we come down here some during the weekend and on the weekends. My son came down here and took a lot of the docks up, and thinking that it would save at least the docks. But this one just had too much surge. It probably was 10 or 12 feet, and it just went right into the house and took it away, really.
We survived the 93 storm of the century. We were the only house on the beach. 9 houses went on both sides of us in a marina, and we survived it. So we really thought that, but we could see and understand from the news that, maybe we'd be fortunate enough to ride out another one, but wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and again, I'm so sorry to hear that. This week, what has this been like for you guys? And as I talked with Brooke, I've heard about this community that is small but so strong that bands together. How has the days after this been for you?
Lots of hugs, lots of help.
Multitude of people showing up.
Lots of
and,
friends.
helping people and helping everybody, and it's been great.
Horseshoe needs help. We're strong and we love each other, and we see each other on weekends, weeks. We're down here off and on, roughly about 6 months total a year. And you might not see somebody for a while, and then when you do, it's just like to see them every day. And we've known people that have been here since the 30s.
My family started coming down here turn of the century. They'd come down here on a wagon. My granddad owned a grocery store in High Springs, so we'd come down and get fish. And
well, one of our cousins lost his house, and we go way back, way back.
It looks like a beautiful community, obviously, that's gone through so much, especially this past week. And Brooke, maybe this is more of a question for you, but whoever's able to answer this, how can people help during this time?
Right now, we're asking for dump trailers. We're asking for tractors, skid steers, so we can push up some of this debris and get it out of here, so people can start, assessing their real damage, what kind of damage is done to their home, what they need to secure it structurally. But first and foremost, we got to get the debris out of here. And right now, we need skid steers. We need grapples to pick it up and put it into dump trailers. We need to put it at the county roll-off site, the dump site. We need to push it to the sides of the curb. Those are the kind of things we need right now.
Okay, and if someone is interested in trying to provide some of that assistance, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
I would say contact. Right now, I am the designated communication person for the town council. You can call me. I can give you my information, and we'll put people in the right direction. Right now, we have experienced people coming down, offering help, obviously looking for jobs to help and things like that. Right now, this community is not in any position to pay people to help clean up right now. We're depending on our family, our neighbors, with dump trucks, with tractors, with things like that, so that we can, soften the financial burden people may have with everything else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brooke, and thank you so much to the residents that you brought on as well for talking with us here. I know a very difficult time, but being able to hear stories like your own is really what helps us understand exactly what happened and what comes next from here. But I do know just from talking with you how strong your community is, and we're thinking of you during this time.
Thank you so much for covering our story. We appreciate it. Horseshoe Beach needs help.
Thank you so much.
critically important. So today, I'm pleased to report that 58 out of our 67 counties, school districts are open. They're up and running, and we expect that number to grow over the weekend. 10 of our 12 state universities are open, and 26 of our 28 state colleges. With our Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, and the Department of Education, they have been working not only to make sure that they had the resources leading up to Hurricane Idalia, but also assessing damage and being able to help them as they are looking to get back up and running. Our administration will be diligent to ensure that they have the resources that they need and supply schools with whatever supplies that they'll need in the coming days. Commissioner Diaz and I will be visiting schools in Suwannee and Hamilton County that were impacted by the storm. And our superintendents, our principals, our teachers, they've been doing a great job. They're the best in the country. We're very appreciative of all their efforts thus far. And again, on behalf of Governor DeSantis' leadership, we've shown that getting kids in the classroom is a priority throughout our entire administration, and especially now as we continue to supply Floridians with the hope and the need that they're going to have as we restore normalcy. Thank you.
Kevin? Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. The state of, first, let me thank both the governor and lieutenant governor and partners like Secretary Harris here. We cannot do, the division cannot do what we do without the leadership and then the support of our sister agencies across the spectrum of state government. So again, thank you for all of that leadership and support. The State Emergency Response Team continues to support communities impacted by Hurricane Idalia. Thanks to the leadership, as I just mentioned, by the end of the day, we will have 9 pods. The governor has mentioned that. I will not reiterate those locations. But 5 of these pods, I will reiterate, opened at noon yesterday. So again, 36 hours after landfall, we had points of distribution open up for Floridians. More than 2,100 vehicles visited these pods yesterday and received more than 48,000 liters of water and 73,700 MREs. We could not do that without the support of the Florida National Guard and the Florida State Guard, and I want to thank them publicly for that. Today we're going to be working on setting up a base camp in Horseshoe Beach and one in Madison County to provide housing and supply distribution sites for our valued nonprofit providers. These nonprofits are going to be going in to assist with items like muck and guts and also, clearing up properties. Baptist Kitchens, Mercy Chefs, Operation Barbecue Relief, Catholic Charities, World Central Kitchen, and more are going to be all over the ground in the coming days preparing meals for impacted residents, and I thank them for their tireless efforts. The State Emergency Response Team is also working hard to address health and medical needs with contracted nursing staff supporting special needs shelters in Suwannee, Pinellas, Hernando, Marion, and Dixie counties. Our search and rescue efforts are nearly complete, and we've finalized operations in 15 counties and are continuing efforts in 3 counties, Madison, Suwannee, and Lafayette today. As search and rescue comes to a close very soon, we are immediately shifting into recovery efforts to get communities back on their feet as quickly as possible. Thanks to Governor DeSantis and our federal partners, we have secured a major disaster declaration for 7 counties, and we will be requesting additional counties be added to that major disaster declaration today. One last thing that I will mention under the governor's leadership yesterday, and again, I don't think people realize just how much of a leader and support we have in Governor DeSantis, but yesterday we were at Horseshoe Beach, and there was a couple of people that were post-disaster homeless. And I'm happy to announce that today we're going to move 5 trailers into Horseshoe Beach today. So again, it took months for us to get to that point after Hurricane Ian, and I'm happy to announce that within 48 hours we're going to have travel trailers in that area for Horseshoe Beach, which is one of the most impacted. Governor, we couldn't do that without your leadership, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Siobhan.
Good morning, everyone. First, my thoughts and prayers are with those impacted by the storm. I want to thank the governor, the lieutenant governor, First Lady Casey DeSantis, and Director Guthrie for their steadfast and incredible leadership before, during, and after the storm. I also want to thank first responders, surge teams, and the linemen for working around the clock. Events like Hurricane Idalia can bring forth a lot of uncertainty. However, for the people of Florida, one thing is certain, and that is the proven record of this governor to do all that is necessary to ensure an expeditious response. We know the devastating losses that individuals and families have experienced, and navigating the myriad of steps to rebuild can be overwhelming. But we want you to know that you are not alone. I'm pleased to announce, as the governor mentioned, 2 activities that will be instrumental in helping individuals with both their immediate needs and long-term planning. This morning, we're standing up family resource support centers in Madison, Taylor, and Suwannee counties. These centers were critical following Hurricane Ian. Each site is staffed with skilled, compassionate teams, including Hope Navigators, crisis counselors, and other program experts who specialize in helping people through the recovery process. Hope Navigators play a pivotal role in the First Lady's Hope Florida program in helping people get back on their feet. We're grateful for the many partners who often co-locate at these centers or are willing to provide additional supplies and resources for those in need. The Taylor County FRSC is located at Battlefront Ministries, the one in Madison is located at the Bridge Church, and the one in Suwannee is located at our DCF office. For hours of operation and address information, please visit our website at www.myflfamilies.com. I'm also excited to announce a new component of the Hope Florida initiative, the Hope Bus, which will allow Hope Navigators to travel to areas where we know there's greater need. It will be useful in reaching populations that may have transportation challenges, as well as communities devastated by natural disasters. The Hope Bus will be accepting its first assignment, traveling to Madison County to bring extra supports to this area. The Hope Florida initiative has truly been transformational. Today's deployment is an exciting announcement and a testament to the First Lady's ongoing commitment to support families with critical resources. The people of Florida are fortunate to have the governor, the lieutenant governor, the First Lady, and so many others in their corner, and the department stands ready to do all that it can. Thank you.
We have opened up the Florida Disaster Fund so people can go and make a contribution to floridadisasterfund.org. I know that there's been a significant amount of money that's been raised as part of that. So with Hurricane Ian, there was tens of millions of dollars distributed, but under the rules at that time, they had to go through basically charitable organizations, which was fine. I mean, we were able to partner when teachers were displaced. We were able to help the teachers through the local education charities. When the police and the firefighters, we went to support them. We did it through their local charitable arms, and so you were able to do it. Also provided resources to other groups who were rebuilding homes and doing things to help. So it was good, but the legislature has changed the structure of it so that and Kevin has set up a charity directly from the disaster fund, basically, that could go and help people directly, because there's so many different types of needs that someone may need something that one of these other established charities just may not be set up for. So that has still been pending for a while. IRS approval. FEMA Director Criswell did call the IRS, I think the IRS director, and asked if we could get this thing expedited. I mean, it will be approved eventually. It merits it, but that will be something. And especially if you look at some of these places that have been affected, like a Horseshoe Beach, Cedar Key, getting into Steinhatchee, these are those are smaller coastal communities than maybe what we dealt with in Southwest Florida. The needs, I think, are maybe a little bit more unique. So it just gives us more flexibility to be able to respond as best as we can. And I think that there was a lot of damage that I saw in some of those areas. I mean, you'd see that water went up pretty high. I mean, it was 4 or 5 feet along the walls of these places. We saw a church, the Baptist church there in Horseshoe Beach was ruined. We met a lady who now we are going to have a trailer, but she was homeless because the water went up 4.5 feet in her home, and it's just not something that's going to require a lot of work to be able to get that to be habitable again, and so they need help in the interim. And so we launched the housing mission, first ever state to do this after Ian. FEMA had traditionally done it. They did do some of it too, but we wanted to get as quickly as possible, so we provided this. Now to have these trailers and have all this where we can get it a few days after the storm, that's never happened in the history of storm relief, not even close. But it's important that we have that option, particularly where these communities are, because there's not a lot of hotels that would be available. After Ian, a lot of the people that were displaced, a lot of them were staying in hotels, because Southwest Florida, there's a bunch of hotels. It's just every other block you could probably find a hotel. Well, that's not necessarily the same in Taylor County or Dixie County or some of these places. So having that option, I think, is really, really good, and it just shows that we lean forward on these things to try to solve problems when those problems arise. Okay, we're going to be going out doing some more site visits today, and look forward to being able to report hopefully some more progress as the day and week goes on.
Governor, do you support the Biden administration's call for more money for the FEMA Disaster Relief Fund? They're looking for $4 billion more.
How Washington handles all this stuff, I don't quite understand. I mean, in the state of Florida, we fund disasters ahead of time. So we have a fund that we created since I've been governor to be able to do this, because, you hope you don't have them. But the reality is, these things just happen. So they just did a big budget deal and did not include that. They included a lot of money for a lot of other stuff. So hopefully I trust our senators and congressmen, hopefully to be able to work it out in a good way. As governor, I'm going to be pulling whatever levers I can to be able to help folks. And so if that's the state, we're mobilizing all of our state assets. Private sector, we're leveraging that, and we will apply for whatever federal money is available.
Talk about your reaction to having only part of your disaster request approved when, counties like Madison County, people are saying that the damage there is worse than what was expected.
Madison was approved, though, wasn't it?
No, sir, Madison.
Okay, so what we anticipate, so we spoke with FEMA. We absolutely anticipate more counties being added. We are going to be asking for that. Same thing that happened with Ian. They added them. But certainly a county like Madison, they had 100% power loss. It's a county that has not necessarily faced these storms the way some of our other communities have. And so, yeah, they've got hard hits. So, but I think we're going to get that. I think that we will. Yep.
What details can you share about the president's visit tomorrow? Do you plan on touring the damage with him? Do you guys plan to sit down and meet anywhere?
I don't have details. We've been running through our paces and doing everything, and so I'm sure that they'll be working with Kevin's team about that. I will say just one thing that I did mention to him on the phone is where these communities, the hardest hit communities, it would be very disruptive to have the whole kind of security apparatus that goes, because there's only so many ways to get into these places. And so what we want to do is make sure that the power restoration continues, that the relief efforts continue, and that we don't have any interruption in that. And I know Kevin has relayed that, and I'm sure they'll be sensitive to that as well. We landed in Horseshoe Beach with a Black Hawk helicopter, and we were just in like a little sand field, like a sand dune almost. And there's only one way in and out of there. And so we want to make sure people are able to do that, and that the support continues unabated. All right, well, we will be back and have hopefully some more updates of some more progress today.
All right, Frank. Congrats.
We're facing a time that the real problem in Florida has been not just the fact that the hurricanes are continuing to hit us, but that the insolvency and the financial stability of the marketplace has been very limited. In fact, there isn't one homeowners company in Florida that has made a profit since 2017. And we find ourselves in a position that as these markets continue to dry up and disappear, we may have one or two that will enter the marketplace, but ultimately, without or with very limited profitability, it makes it difficult for these companies to, one, want to stay, and two, really have the resources to do so. And so what we are finding these days is that really what I had hoped would not happen has happened, which is the reinsurance market has also facilitated a lot of this problem. Well, we had the storm last year, and there's estimates from 112 billion to 200 billion overall for the storm. Some of the losses upon the homeowners companies, but some upon FEMA and the like. But the problem that we're all facing here is that South Florida and also all of Florida now, as we see the Big Bend area hit, we're facing something that we're not used to, because places like Tampa, Tallahassee, the Big Bend area, they really have never seen a hurricane in years past. And this is really the first time for them in many cases, at least in a lifetime. And that makes it a little bit more unnerving for the people that live in those areas. But also the fact is, when you come down here, what are we expecting when you buy a home? You're expecting that your costs are going to be 4 to 5 times the national average. We're talking probably a minimal of a 5% of the structure value for the deductibles. And in many cases, it goes to 10 or 15, which makes it totally unaffordable for some to be able to handle the either the mortgage and the homeowners insurance, or to be able to feel comfortable that they can budget properly for the coming years.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Greg, please. I wanted to get in there too, because you were kind of alluding to this fact that, what has kind of remained right now a South Florida problem is becoming an all Florida problem. But, you kind of alluded to this as well. I mean, Florida is no stranger to hurricanes. It sees hurricanes each and every year, and it has for so many years, time immemorial, you could argue. But why specifically now is this such a problem?
Well, I think if you look at the world in general, you're looking at a very, there's a lot of financial crises wherever you look, and this is just one of those. And when you look at what is reinsurance, well, in Florida, we have a lot of small companies who depend on very large companies for their insurance. So just the same as I'm going to go out and buy a homeowner's policy for my insurance, these homeowners companies will go out and they're purchasing their reinsurance. So what we have is a situation that, in the case of one of our carriers locally, they had a $30 million deductible last year. This year, they have a $100 million deductible before they submit any claims to the reinsurance companies. And on top of that, in this case, their reinsurance costs them over $600 million. So when you look at those numbers, how many policies would you have to sell as a company to be able to, let's say the average was $3,000 to $5,000 to be profitable? I mean, it's just really not there for most of these companies. And while the state does its best, and I have to say, Florida has done a fantastic job of dealing with the hurricanes as they hit and as the need arises for the communities. They really get out there. They've got the electricians. They've got all of the people needed in the right places, and they do a fantastic job. The problem is what happens after that occurs, and it's the cleanup, it's the rebuilding. And when you look at just this year alone, well, we're paying 4 times the national average. We also talk about what are the building costs? What are the costs of reconstruction? So, for instance, it used to be that our upscale homes that we would have would be somewhere in the range of $250 a square foot. Now those are in excess of $600 to $700 a square foot to replace, and even the you know, $200,000 to $300,000, $400,000, 2,000 square foot homes are in that $300,000 to $400,000 range, or $300 to $400 range per square foot to rebuild. So all along the path, it continues to diminish our capability to fight. And you know, when you look at the influx, what do we have? You know, 25 million to 30 million people in Florida. The infrastructure is being built properly. Everything is being built up to code. But like the area of Big Bend, you'll notice that a lot of that's aging, and those are older homes. And so when these companies come in to insure them, well, do they really, want to insure older homes of wooden structures, things like that? And if they do, well, it's going to be a total loss when these storms finally hit those areas. Yeah. And so it is a real dilemma. So for instance, we always considered South Florida, the Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties. And then above that, things got a lot less expensive. Well, as of this last year, they continued up the coast where the hurricanes came across more to the middle of the state. Right. And that really opened the door for those premiums to go up and to go up and to go up. So we're really seeing now that it's what used to be isolated to a tri-county area is now statewide, as you mentioned. And the problem is that not all of the state is brought up to code. So these older areas are going to incur larger losses.
Yeah, you know, I want to talk though about, I guess, the insurance market writ large in the state of Florida, because you know, several insurance companies, major ones, they've pulled out. They said, you know, they're no longer going to write policies there in the state, but some are still there. I mean, we're not on the trajectory where it's, you know, going to come a point in time where you just can't insure anything like your home there in Florida because of the extreme weather. Do you think we're on that path right now? Are we far away from that at the moment?
Oh, yeah, we're clearly on that path. And the reason I would say that is this. We have a company called Citizens, and it's a non-governmental company, but really not they're designed for profit, but it's the place of last resort. And even in those cases, people can't even qualify to get in if their structures have not been updated on the roofs, on the electrical, on the plumbing, and things like that after a period of time. So these companies are not enticed to come in, and the ones that come in are being paid to come in. So what happens is Citizens takes in all of the policies that, you know, most carriers wouldn't want. And then the other will come in and they call it a takeout program. And the takeout program allows for them to be able to manage claims, run the typical day-to-day on handling the policies as an insurance company, but they get paid somewhere between $300 and $1,000, and they must hold on to them for 3 years, I believe. In this case, I'm not quite sure if it's going to be 3 to 5 on these new companies coming in. So they are enticing the companies coming in, and the codes have been upgraded since Hurricane Andrew. You know, when we saw those basically bombs going off in Kendall, Florida, in those areas, we've seen them really push to make the codes a lot better so that when the structures are being built, it's being built to a much higher standard. But as I mentioned, the Big Bend area is not that area. Yeah, that is rural, and it's, you know, you look at it and it's really a shame what happens to those people, and sometimes those people get forgotten. But, you know, when you look at a storm like that, if it would have come through Tampa, I mean, you'd be talking hundreds of billions of dollars. And Orlando has taken its share of abuse. People used to say, well, if you're more than 10 miles from the coast, you're okay as far as we're concerned. Well, that's just not the case anymore, because, you know, Orlando last year took a big brunt of the hurricane. And not only that, a lot of it was the flooding and the drenching afterwards. So it wasn't necessarily all on the insurance company. It was also on FEMA.
I see.
Well, the problem with FEMA is that if you didn't carry flood insurance, which about 85% to 90% didn't carry flood insurance, then the flood insurance carrier was not, there's no requirement in those cases, in a lot of those cases. So these FEMA would come in and they'd pay an offer to help you rebuild, but then it's just like taking out a government loan.
I see.
You know, and there you go. Do you have a mortgage? Yes. Okay, well, now you have 2 mortgages and a homeowner's policy that's going to cost you 400% more than or 4 times the average.
Wow.
So you're looking at a huge amount of variables, but tying all into the same problem, which is a declining market and reinsurance companies who are getting a little skittish. You know, when you talk about the Lloyds of Londons, the Globals, the people like that who will go in and they'll say, well, one person will take $1 billion, the other will take another $1 billion, and they share the market as far as that goes. But at what point do they decide it just isn't worth it? And then I think what we're facing at some point may be a full governmental intervention where the federal government, like FEMA with flood, they may have to do something for the coastal areas of the United States to break the cycle of these cost increases, because we are seeing, I would just tell you this. We have some of the homes that are 20 or 30 years old, and let's say it's $1 million structure here. We're talking about $30,000 a year to insure it.
Wow. So,
and some even more. We just did one the other day. It was $37,000 to redo. It was a home built in the 1970s.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, in many cases, people say, well, they're wealthy, I don't really care. Well, yeah, everybody has their own problems, and nobody expected this to happen to them when they purchased these homes.
Exactly.
But even in addition to that, we're facing the issues on the commercial level too. People focus only on the homes for the most part. But what we're seeing is the commercial marketplace, where you used to have a lot of the Airbnbs and that type of a product. Those people have all basically had to either sell the property or find a way to get off of that mortgage, because there's no profitability anymore in it. So it's a real problem for our area. And then, so I have a client who owns a little strip plaza, and it's got a few restaurants in it. He was paying $35,000 last year for his insurance. This year it's $110,000.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing. This is, ballooning, like you said. We're just halfway through Atlantic hurricane season, but we do appreciate your time, Greg Buck, with the National Risk Experts president there. Thank you so much. Have a good Labor Day weekend.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate it.
That's a dumb question, because if you're not here, how would you know you weren't here? Folks, first of all, let me thank the mayor for sticking with me and showing me around. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, as you just walk around here and look at these few homes, My mother used to have an expression, but for the grace of God. Can you imagine this tree falling through your roof in your home? I met the family who lives one door down from, this is used as a church. Had that tree, it's got to be 75, 100 feet long. Had that gone 10 degrees to the right, it would have been through the young woman's bedroom. She would have been gone. So I tell you what, I just did this aerial tour with Live Oak Police Chief Keith Davis, surveying the damage on the way up here and then on the ground since we've been here, surveying the damage of a Category 3 hurricane that made landfall Wednesday morning. No winds this strong had hit this area in 100 years. Pray God it'll be another 100 years before this happens again. Senator Rick Scott, who's with me today, I want to thank him for his cooperation, his help, and he shares the view I do about FEMA. They're doing an incredible job. But the work, in a sense, is just beginning. We got a lot of work to do. And all the officials from Florida, I want to thank them. Jill and I spent time with the incredible first responders and folks who ran toward the danger instead of away from the danger when this storm was coming and when it hit. And with their families, the families whose lives have been upended. We didn't meet everybody, we met a lot. Here in Live Oak, massive trees, as I just was referring, were uprooted from intense hurricane force winds, flooding and severe damage of homes and businesses. Police Chief Davis, who's probably can hardly wait till I go because we're spending so much time with him today, and I appreciate it. I really do, Chief. He not only, while he was doing his job, he lost part of his house, he lost the roof on his barn. It was destroyed. A leader at school lost part of her roof and her car was destroyed. Power is out across the county as chicken processing plants and lumber mills, so they can't operate, affecting economic well-being in the near term. Just here in this county, millions of broiler chickens had to be destroyed. I know a little about that. Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, it's a $4 billion industry. It's the way people make their living. It's the way you feed the world. It's amazing. And hundreds of broken power poles, down power lines means many of you in Live Oak still have no power. I know it's frustrating and it's hard, and I've directed FEMA to help you in every way they can. And FEMA in the future can fund and replace these